There's nothing easy about running for president, I can tell you. It's tough, it's nasty, it's mean, it's vicious, it's beautiful.
We are the only campaign that has beaten and can beat Donald Trump.
Tonight, I am suspending my campaign.
Well, that's a taste of the reactions last night from the winner and some of the losers in the South Carolina Republican primary. And it's now time for our Sunday group. GOP strategist Karl Rove, Neera Tanden, president of the liberal think tank, the Center for American Progress, Laura Ingraham, editor of LifeZette, and Julie Pace, who covers the White House and the campaign for the Associated Press. Karl, I just want to make sure you know that Donald Trump sends his best this morning.
I give him my best back.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. Where does the Republican race stand this morning? How strong is Trump? And how do you handicap what is looking like a three-man race?
Well, I think it is a three-man race as of today. And look, he had a very good night last night after having a bad last 10 days. I mean, he peaked on February 11th in the Real Clear Politics average at 38, 40 if you take out the undecideds. He ended up last night with a very solid 32, and he took, because of the party rules, all 50 delegates in the only winner-take-all contest out of the 28 contests between February 1st and March 14th. So he had a very good night. And looking ahead, he has a couple of very good weeks ahead of him in all likelihood. He's found a way to unglue blue-collar evangelicals, thereby deeply damaging Ted Cruz's chances to sweep these 6 southern states that are going to be voting on March 1st. And the rest of the contest, he's going to do pretty well, because if he takes a third in the vote, he will probably get slightly more than a third of the delegates. They're all proportional contests between now and the 14th of March. And he's going to have a divided opposition. On the other hand, there are big challenges for both parties, and the Republicans probably bigger challenges. If he becomes the nominee, we will have nominated the guy who has who is tied for having the worst favorable unfavorables of all candidates, Republican and Democratic alike. The only other candidate who's as bad is Hillary Clinton. And if we don't nominate Trump, the party will be equally divided, because he's made it clear if he doesn't get the nomination, that's his definition of being treated unfairly.
Laura, and talking primarily about the Republicans post-South Carolina and this three-man race, what do you want to add?
I think it's interesting to look at Rubio's hierarchy in his campaign. Most of them are based in South Carolina. Warren Tompkins, of course, has the firm, his partner, both working for Rubio, Super PAC in the campaign manager position as well. You have to ask yourself, if Rubio, with all of the expertise in South Carolina, can't deliver more than 2 counties in South Carolina and no delegates, where does Rubio go on to win here? So I know everyone's like, well, Rubio has momentum going out of this race. I don't see where he wins. So I think Karl's onto something here. You go into Nevada, Trump's going to win that. SEC primaries, I think he's going to roll through SEC. He's doing a big speech today in Atlanta. We saw the huge crowds turn out for him in Alabama, where Jeff Sessions hasn't endorsed him, but he's, in my mind, he's all but. So I think Trump has momentum, but if he has to unify the party. I think it's interesting that he hasn't gone after Rubio, and I know Rubio hasn't really gone after him, but I can see something in the offing here, where if Trump keeps going, the compromise to the establishment, whatever you want to call them, and the grassroots could be a Trump-Rubio ticket. I know people are horrified to hear that maybe, but that's what I'm seeing if I have to have a crystal ball right now.
And just briefly, how about Ted Cruz? Because some people would say, look, 70% of the voters there identified as born again or evangelical, and that would seem to have been, if he can't win there, where can he win?
I don't want to count out Ted Cruz. I think he has an amazing campaign operation, but he has 11 delegates. Trump has 61, and at this point, Ted Cruz is going to have to do some soul searching too. If he can't start chalking up more victories than just in Iowa, he's going to have to make a decision. Is he going to throw in with Rubio, or is he going to throw in with Trump? So he could be the sweet spot for both the establishment and more of the grassroots candidate here.
If we remember one thing from this week, a month from now, a year from now, my guess is it may be the fact that this was the week that Pope Francis, the Holy Father, became a participant in the Republican presidential primary in South Carolina. When you thought you'd seen it all, you saw this.
A person who only thinks about making walls again and again and not making bridges is not a Christian.
For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful.
We asked you for questions for the panel, and we got a lot of comments like this one from Mike on Twitter. Who is paying the Pope or directing him to drum up votes against conservatives in America? Julie, A lot of people think that, in fact, the Pope's comments helped Trump in heavily evangelical South Carolina.
I think it's possible that it did help Trump for this reason. The thing that Trump has been saying consistently throughout this campaign that has really gotten him support across the country is his positions on immigration. And you've seen moments in the campaign where he veers off into other topics, but every time he can come back to immigration, remind people of his tough positions, he gets stronger. And so the Pope gave him an opportunity to do that. I think that the Pope is someone who has taken some pride in trying to rile up politicians on immigration, on climate change. I don't think he was trying to do anything specifically to stop Donald Trump, but it's another great example of how Donald Trump is a masterful politician. He took something that was quite controversial, and I think turned it into a positive for him.
Neera, before we get into the craziness in your party, how much are you enjoying what's going on with the Republicans?
I think it's an interesting time in American politics on both sides. I was surprised that you could have a kind of Twitter war with the Pope and still survive. I do think the one thing going forward, really for both parties, although there are differences in both parties, is that if you look at the exit polls in South Carolina, 53% of GOP voters are anti-establishment, really feel betrayed by their party, not just anti-establishment, feel betrayed by their party. So how a party produces a Marco Rubio or a kind of traditional candidate when you have that much anger at the GOP establishment, where they feel, like, use the word betrayed, is something we look at. There's factors like that in the Democratic Party. It's just not as high,
yeah, but
much
I
lower.
want to pick up on that because clearly that's something that Bernie Sanders is tapping into. We're going to get into that in the next segment. In that sense, does Donald Trump, if he ends up as the nominee, and I know there are some Democrats, I don't know about you, who are kind of licking their chops at that, do you have to be careful what you wish for? I mean, could he tap into that both on the Republican side and the Democratic side, that sense of we're going to just burn the whole place down and start over again?
I think he seems to be driving the numbers on the GOP side. I think people should recognize that there's higher numbers in turnout yesterday in South Carolina. That is something that, Democrats should be worried about. Now, he might polarize other folks as well, college-educated folks, to go the other way. But he is transforming American politics, and we have to see how much it's actually going to mean and whether it would depress Republican voters if you went with a pro-establishment candidate.
And one last quick thing, Neera, that tableau, and I talked about it with Marco Rubio, when he's on the stage with Nikki Haley, with Tim Scott, young, minorities, if that were to be the face of the Republican Party, doesn't that become pretty tough for Democrats in the sense that it explodes the kind of traditional stereotype?
Sure, but we also have to see that the rhetoric on the trail has gotten so much more polarizing on immigrants and other issues. So that's the real question. This debate in the GOP will decide where does the party want to go, and can you attract candidates who are anti-establishment, angry at what's happening in the country, really angry at what's happening in the country, and still be a diverse party? That's the question.
Okay, we have to take a break here.